Dignity, her strength in every weakness. A reprint of the book originally published as Dignity. A woman's value is her character. The greatest and most valuable asset one can own is not material, but who they choose to become. By George Robert Zide, published by Continental Books, a company by George Robert Publishers. The right of George Robert to be identified as the author of this work has been asserted by him in accordance with the Legal Deposit Act 57 of 1997. Published by George Robert Services and distributed by Continental Books in South Africa. sacontinentalbooks@gmail.com, George Robert Services @gmail.com, 072-4627-933. A free sample copy of the book available at the National Library of South Africa and other places of legal deposits as per Section 2 of the Legal Deposit Act. ISBN 978-620-83757. Acknowledgements. To my colleagues and advisors, thank you all from the bottom of my heart. I know this book would have not been a success without your support, dedication, and hard work. Sisters in Christ who guided me through it all. Miss Thulasilam Donswa, my spiritual guiders, Mr. and Mrs. Nkosi, may God bless you for all your support, encouragement, and continuous supportive prayers. Thank you. To my friends who helped me write, edit, and pre-read this book. Thanks to Sifisile Makosi Mbatha and Sanelisiwe Goodness Mafunda. Thank you so much for your time and sacrifices. I hope that next time I knock at your doors, you will still open them for me and assist me warm-heartedly as you did on this project. To the supporters, I can never thank you enough. May God bless you abundantly and grow you through this book and unlock your full potential. This project would have never reached to anyone without your support. It is because of you that we will still do the best we can to educate, advise, and inspire young people to live their lives to their full potential. Enjoy the book, be liberated, educated, and motivated. Thank you from all of us at George Robert Services. Enjoy. Introduction. No man has a right to judge and condemn a woman for the wrong choices they make, unless they can attest that they did everything they could to show them the right path, and they rejected it. Not even that gives them the right to condemn, for the world is never complete without a woman. A house can never be a home without one, and a man without a woman is just a male. In this book, we show our full support and invest all the knowledge we have accumulated to empower, build, and sustain the woman we believe this generation needs, a woman independent from negative influences and all bad forces around her. We believe that women have the power to change the world with a simple smile, soft voice, calm voice, and kind heart. While men believe in wealth to be relevant, power to rule and control, a woman only needs a good character to be relevant, to lead a nation and empower those she sees potential on. Through this book, we hope to trigger the wisdom invested in each one of us for the sake of the flowers of our nation, as we touch different stories by ordinary young women who manage to become extraordinary and change their lives and those of the community through simple, dignified acts. Let's explore the amazing works of these 10 women and hope that we page through yours. Chapter 1: Responsibilities and Sacrifices. I've always heard of stories of children who became parents at an early age, young girls forced into marriage for different reasons, and those thrown out on the streets by step-parents after becoming orphans. To me, those were just stories that happened to the most unfortunate people on earth. I had no idea that one day I would add to their statistics and manage to come up victorious by trusting in God and working myself through it. I had to leave my comfort zone at an early age because of the responsibilities I had to bear. Sometimes I had to think, as a mother, a big sister, and a father to my siblings as if they were orphans because of the negligence of my father. I had to grow faster than a normal child. At 16, I had to think like a parent. It puzzles me to this day to see a teenage mom who thinks life is fun when you become a parent at an early age. At least, to most of them, it was by choice. They were reaping what they planted. But to me, it was involuntary. I had so many plans to enjoy my childhood, but chances couldn't allow me. At 17, I had to leave school and find a job to support my sick father and the kids of my deceased mother. Many thought I was a natural caretaker because I never wanted my siblings to feel the gap of growing up without a mother. I gave them everything I could and took care of my father, who seemed to have given up in life. All that mattered to him was to have something to drink before going to bed. At that point of time, I would have given anything to make our lives better, but never my dignity. I understand that everything can be redeemed by chance. Anyone could wake up rich in this modern world and sleep at night the same day a poor man. Anyone could say something to impress people and say another to refuse himself on the same sentence. But dignity comes with character. It takes years to build, only to be destroyed in a split second, and can take even longer to rebuild it. It's like a big house with ancient, valuable built-I essentials. It costs a lot to build and much more to renovate. It's like a relationship. It takes few impressive words to convince one another that you are perfect for each other, a few dates to strengthen it up, one act to destroy it, and a lifetime to rebuild it. I consider myself a woman of dignity because I treat myself like one. I conduct myself in a dignified manner, and I have dignified morals as a female individual. It takes an accumulative decision to determine what a metal, an iron, or a piece of gold is worth. Even the stock market is controlled by individuals on desks, but a woman's dignity is self-made, maintained, and preserved. A country can sit and decide who can or should be the president of the country, but no one can decide on which woman is to be considered more valuable without taking into consideration how she withholds herself. Many take prides in having perfect bodies, great skin color, and great looks despite their internal value. Usually, a man who chooses a woman based on her looks ends up leaving her for someone with even better looks. The truth is, if you have beautiful eyes, there will always be someone with better eyes than you do. If you have an indisputably great body, there will be someone with even better body shape willing to give it away to those willing to take it. Those are not assets that make a woman or give her dignity. After some time, looks do change. Beauty fades away with age, no matter what you do. There are procedures to delay it, products to hide it, but nothing can be done to keep it in you. Differently from character that gives a woman dignity, it cannot be used to compare one from the other. If a woman has a good reputation, all her flaws seem to be neglected, her looks are overlooked, and her heart, conduct, and dignity are taken into consideration at all times. Every real man willing to marry a good woman will speak of good qualities, which include beauty. What you don't know is that beauty is mostly hidden within a living being. How many beautiful women have moved from one man to another? I mean, their beauty attracted the man, but their character chased them away. It's simple. Build a good character within you, and you will be praised for being beautiful, even if the appearance doesn't conform. It is even better if you have great appearances and a well-groomed character. You will be considered a woman of dignity. The Bible says, and I quote, "Charm can be deceiving, and beauty fades away, but a woman who fears the Lord deserves to be praised." Proverbs 31:30 KJV. Coming from where I have been, I consider myself one of the most blessed young women on earth. I had nothing to start with, no family, friends, or a partner to tell me that all shall be well with me. I had to rely on God, whom I could not see, but could feel that He was making a woman out of a girl. And He succeeded by not giving me what I thought I wanted to have, but making me whom I needed to be in order to have and handle what I wanted to have. Today, I'm an independent woman and have my own standards of living. I never had a chance to cry on a man's shoulder for anything, and yet I lack nothing. I take pride for my achievements, a full responsibility for my shortfalls, and even greater pride for single-handedly raising my siblings who today see me as their role model, provider, senior sister, and advisor. I consider myself a woman of dignity because when life kicked me so hard, I didn't give up. Instead, I took it as an opportunity to work hard and build a testimony. In my mind, I knew that if I won that battle, I would use my story to inspire other young people like you to do better, to learn to be independent and work towards becoming better people despite the challenges we go through. Facing challenges doesn't mean the universe hates you. Most of the time, it is trying to set you aside and grow you the best way it can. Remember, if Jesus was exactly like you and me, without anything to distinguish him from the most kids, we wouldn't be sure that he is the Messiah spoken about in the book of prophet Isaiah. A young woman has conceived and will bear a son whose name will be Emmanuel. Isaiah 7, 14. It was what he went through as a child and who he became as an adult that made the world to stand still and believe in God once again. Don't fear being different. Your circumstance will open a new window of opportunities. And confident young lady, if you are willing to sacrifice your fun and become a mentor and a living testimony. Our generation of young people does not invest in hearsays. They want to believe in what they can see. If your testimony is about what could have been, then we will have a generation of it could be or it could have been only if. But if we choose to become those living legendary testimonies, becoming what we want to see in others, then we would be inspiring the youth by simply being who we are instead of what we say. This is mostly seen in great parents who made mistakes in their youth. No matter what great advice they give to their children, they will always ask why didn't they use the same advice themselves and become better people. It is easy to educate someone on what you can see instead of what you could be or become. It is like telling your child you had at 16 to avoid having sex at a young age to avoid early pregnancy. It is mostly luckily that they won't easily listen to you simply because you couldn't when you had a chance. Quote, if you avoid unwanted mistakes, you will have an insight of what life should be to your children, siblings, and anyone who listens to you by simply being yourself and sharing your experience. By George Robert Z.A. Leaving home for university made me think I had it all. After all, I am from a Christian family. I heard of stories being told in my community of girls who left for university and came back within the first semester pregnant or completely changed, messed up to be specific. I thought those were just stories to keep us rooted and avoid association with the wrong people. Well, it wasn't until I finally got to university and experienced life and freedom for the very first time. Back home, I thought I was free, but the truth is, I was just well guided because I had my parents guiding me at home, my teachers guiding me at school, and my pastors guiding me at church. Here I was on my own. Not even my friends gave me this sense of freedom. For the first time, I had myself to myself, own decisions to make, and a new life to live. Here, nothing was the same. I had no one to look up to and no one to guide me, so I thought I had an opportunity to be whoever I wanted to be, and everyone would just accept me for who I presented myself as, instead of whom I was expected to be as it was back home. I had a lot of choices to choose from and a lot of decisions to make before reality caught up with me and reminded me that I was who I went there as, not whom I was thinking of becoming. Don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with change, but the reason behind change determines a lot concerning it. My change wasn't to improve, but to blind in. That's not the change I would want for myself or anyone. That is why I looked back to determine my next step with a sober mind without any influence. I changed the way I saw the whole thing when I couldn't decide. I took it as a test of faith and character. I realized that I could blind in and fool myself and become a completely different person and lose myself. Or I could just be my real self and sell myself for who I knew myself to be, instead of going through the trouble of becoming someone completely new. I took my time and studied everyone around me. I learned that many people were not themselves. I could see this by how they conducted themselves. They were like people learning to be themselves and adapting to new environment. Everyone led a life hard to explain. It was like watching a Tyler Perry movie and finding out that in a cast of 10 people, he played 5 of the characters and directed the movie at the same time. It was amazing, yet hard to believe. I reflected on myself and thought hard about everything. I thought of my dreams and the promises I made to my parents when I left home. It felt like a movie, but reality was slowly kicking in, so I decided to be myself. It wasn't easy for many reasons, one of them being the fact that even those around me were like bad actors and actresses trying to figure out which role suits them best. I was amazed when I saw my roommate for the first time. She was a lousy and free-spirited girl when we were in class, and a sweet, calm angel when she was at the residence. It was like living with Medea and Tyler Perry as your friends. Medea was only active during the day in class. Then Tyler Perry took over the night shift back at the residence. She would always talk about how well-mannered she used to be until she was influenced by the people around her. She would say how I would change within a month and be like her, if not worse than she was. That scared me. Simply because everyone was doing it made me think, what could stop me from joining the club? Every Friday they went out and sometimes only came back the following day or even after the weekend. It seemed so wrong to me. But then I realized that I was there to deal with myself and nobody else. I kept on praying that I would not be corrupted by others, but win them over instead. I went on trying to understand the double-minded strangers and kept my faith intact. I had a big break when I had an opportunity to present myself for whom I was during the orientation day. I was given a microphone to answer a question, and I decided to introduce myself before doing so. While everyone was trying to fit in, I decided to differ. I spoke in my home language, Isiswati. I gave away my name and that I believe in God above all. I gained a reputation immediately, not because I said anything that they didn't know, but simply because I was bold enough to be myself when everyone was trying to fit in a life no one introduced anybody into. From that day, people associated themselves with me, and I got an opportunity that I have been longing for to call everyone into reality and find out who they were behind their masks. Before long, I was made a class representative for internal auditing students. I used that opportunity to engage with most students and talk about life, their dreams, and homes. I was amazed to find that many of those people were just like me, only covered in shells of identity crisis. They could not be themselves simply because they feared being different from the rest. As soon as I laid my foundation, I became myself more and more. I grew up and learned to reject labels and grades that separated people who should be treated equally. I broke the gap between looking like and being. I always had different views about how people sold themselves as whom they wish to be instead of who they really are. I believe this has caused many breakups in people's relationships. Selling yourself for whom you want your partner to think you are, instead of who you are. For instance, a man who likes home-cooked meals meets a date at a restaurant instead of home just to look cooler and acceptable. Or a girl who had to borrow money for hair, nails, and makeup to impress a man she hardly knows. The question is, if he can't accept you for who you are now, what makes you think he will want to keep you when you finally run out of funds to make you look all beautiful and decide to be yourself? So I chose to look simple, wearing my normal clothes, never went an extra mile to impress an individual. If they didn't like me for who I was, I just left them. Maybe they were never meant to be part of my life in the first place. I believe in local business brands instead of all those expansive clothes. I would rather wear a no-name brand than spending money I didn't have in clothes or anything I can live without. I joined an all-girls movement, aiming to empower and build a woman and make them fit for the modern society without decreasing the value of their dignity and selling themselves short. I consider myself a victor today because I didn't allow peer pressure to get over me. I stood my ground, and before long I had people joining me. I became myself, and in the process, I inspired others to be themselves. I don't think I would stand firm today and say I am woman of dignity if I lost myself. Today I say to you, as I could back then, so can you now. Many had people to support them financially. Some of those things were paid with their virginity, hence giving away their dignity, which is hard to redeem, if redeemable at all. I guess being foolish and uncool kept me safe from those predators, as a reason I boldly say, I am a woman with dignity. Chapter 3, Against All Odds. We always deem ourselves to be what society defines us as, and fail to find our true passions in life. We tend to run after and dream about what we are entitled to, instead of working hard and follow our dreams. I am woman of dignity, and here's why. I grew up in a society where females are for the kitchen and man for schooling and working to keep families alive and well-fed. I always saw an opening for myself to fill in what was known to be for man, although I could not have much said, since women had limited access to freedom of speech, unless we were discussing how to cook a certain meal. I had suggestions for a lot of things, and kept them to myself until I was able to act independently. The society had its criteria set up for me, but I had other plans. I remember when my mother told me to prepare a table for the family. My brothers were playing a game of chess. They were so focused and looked very serious. I had less than a minute looking at the set, and I finished the game in my mind. I had all the right moves well calculated, but I couldn't even comment on it, since I had women's duties allocated to me. The very same way I saw those loopholes in small things. I kept looking wider and for other gaps in our community, and I found that we had to travel long distances for food, equipment, and other essentials. The community had already accepted that way of living, but I saw that as an opportunity to solve a problem that man could not solve for many years. So much was being told about how many failed businesses tried to fill the gap of having shops around our community. But my defense was always one. Was any of the failed businesses ran or conducted by a woman? The answer was always no, with an addition of no woman is able to do what a man cannot and succeed. Somehow that grew my determination and willingness to make a change by all means. As a woman, it wasn't easy to sit down and talk about business to anyone. I remember when there was a business seminar around our community, only males could attend, and even after that, no change was made. I used that as an opportunity to teach myself to identify the problems facing our community and note down possible solutions. I took a pen and a paper and wrote a letter to the local municipality with all the problems I identified and possible solutions that could fill in the gap. It doesn't help to identify a problem that is already known if you don't have a possible solution. I figured that everyone could see how much improvement was needed in our community, but there were few people who had the right solutions in mind, and even fewer willing to take the risk of suggesting the solutions to those who could do something about it. I guess they were afraid that if they suggested solutions that would later fail, they would be blamed for the losses. But the truth is, those were just possible suggestions of what solutions could be put into practice. I took the chance. I submitted the letter and kept my fingers crossed for as long as I waited for a response. One day, a mailman knocked at our door, seeking to talk to my father, who willingly accepted an invite from the local municipality leader for a meeting to further discuss his plan to help the community. As a humble man as my father was, he accepted and went to meet the mayor on the date indicated in the invite. When he got there, both the mayor and my father were surprised to have no knowledge about the plans written on the initial letter. There was no way they would know, because it was written by a woman who went against the odds to challenge the mental capacity of a man and community leaders by engaging in matters that were deemed to be above her mental understanding. When my father returned home, he called a meeting with my brothers and asked about the initial mail sent to the municipality. None of them had knowledge of the content. So it all came down to me. For the first time, I engaged with my father and brothers about matters outside the kitchen. They were amazed on how I turned to be knowledgeable about problem solving and community development. A few days later, we went to meet the mayor, to whom I was able to explain a full plan on how to start a local supermarket. Today, we have more than what my plan was about, and it was named after me. A girl from the village in the Eastern Cape who faced her fears and went against the odds to implement what she believed was correctly necessary from her perspective. Because of my bold moves, I have lost few thousands in my business career. And that was all in the process of making the millions I am worth now. I learned to understand that a journey of 1,000 steps began with one. If you want to succeed, you must be willing to lose as well. In my business career, I came to understand that a loss is the money never invested, a dream never lived, and a plan never implemented. All those things have one thing in common when tried. Even if you don't get returns in your investment, have your dream short-lived or have a failed plan, but you will have experience to share and a well-calculated guideline for your next move. I chose to believe in myself when no one could. I took risks and came out successful. As a young woman, I believe that all it takes to overcome challenges is one move, a move that might be forbidden but not abominable, a move that many are afraid to make and consider it to be too risky to start with. Usually moves with great risks have even greater returns if successful. Start young and face your fears. Eventually, you will find your big break. I believe in you. I am a woman of dignity, and I believe in taking risks and hope for the best. Chapter 4. Victory Without a Fight. Getting married is a big step up in a woman's life, but to every step up there is a gap and a chance to step down. I was fortunate enough to marry a humble, loving, and dependable man who also happened to be a pastor. My marriage to him came with a title. I was now a woman pastor, working side by side with my husband. Our community had great respect for us, but his family had issues with him being a servant of the Lord full time and neglecting his family ritual beliefs. It was not easy for him to leave the life he knew to serve the Lord, but with his grace, he was able to prove wrong those who did not believe in him, and my full support gave him the strength to carry on. I remember this one time when his older brother came to see us and talk about his sick father. He said that there was a need for my husband and I to be part of a ceremony to please the ancestors and plead with them to spare the life of their father. In this case, my father-in-law, as if it was not enough that my husband would not be part of this, we were told that the only way we can be part of the ceremony was to first introduce ourselves to the ancestors as a couple so that they would recognize us. I was filled with disbelief, and I knew that my husband would not agree to any of this. He took his time, listened to his brother, and told him that he would go see his father, but he wanted nothing to do with any ancestry work. He was willing to contribute whatever money was needed to go ahead with the ceremony without him actually being part of it. From that day, I was labeled a witch who bewitched his husband to neglect his family values and follow an unknown god. I was accused of making his family enemies and causing him to change. My husband would always defend me, and as a humble woman, I would always apologize for no reason at all. I guess my apology made them think I was really sorry that my husband wanted nothing to do with them. I was willing to look and sound like a fool just to keep those family meetings peaceful. It had a temporary effect on humility from my side, but a lifetime of consequences for me and an ever-growing tension for me and my husband. My husband was able to speak his mind, but I could not. See, as a submissive wife, my voice to his family was through him as it should be. Unless the question was directed to me, at that point I would have to speak myself still with respect, regardless of how they addressed me and the names they called me with. I always understood that only fighters blow each other on a fight. When one blows the other and receives nothing in return, it's called an attack. I was humble enough to keep on being a victim without defense than being a perpetrator. When someone attacks you and you choose to fight back, you are not showing any strength but weakness. You prove that you are nothing different from them. In fact, you are being submissive to your weakness. As long as that happens, you will always be controlled by anyone willing to start a fight with you. They will change your mood whenever they want to. Strength is when you are under attack, have all the defense system on standby, and yet ignore the insults for the sake of peace. Great leaders won their battles by finding common grounds and promoting peace instead of fighting back. We speak of great leaders today that won the Nobel Prizes. Leaders like Nelson Mandela, the first Black president of South Africa, Dr. Abiy Ahmed Ali, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia in 2019, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the President of Liberia in 2011. All these people received global recognition by promoting peace, not fighting and winning wars. My greatest Nobel Peace promoter would be the Lord Jesus Christ, who willingly allowed people to crucify him for sins he did not commit. Those who crucified him thought they won by using violence. But the question right now would be, where are they now? Who knows them by names? Who honors them for their actions today? For that reason and many others, I chose to be humble and noble. I always chose to be peaceful, because even when I didn't win the argument, I would have won the war without a fight. Things took a turn for the worse when my husband passed away. As a woman, I thought that I was powerless without the man who stood for me when I was under attack. My husband's family came over me and hoped to find me defenseless. Little they knew that my husband had a double-enforced shield in me. I only allowed them to persecute me without defense because my husband was there. When they wanted me to marry his older brother in order to keep my house in the name of tradition, I had to lawfully remind them that my husband and I never practiced any family tradition. So, what made them think that I would be willing to practice them now? As woman, I was threatened that the church we led with my husband would be closed because no woman was brave enough to carry a community on her shoulders. As peaceful as I did not argue. I just asked them to give me a chance to prove them wrong. One thing that I learned at that point is that if you want to prove your point to a man, allow him to feel powerful and confident before challenging him. At that point, he will have no choice but to give you a chance, being sure that the fact that you praised him first, you have nothing to offer. I allowed him to believe that I was gambling with chances, and I was but not as much as I pretended to be. I called a meeting with few community members and sold my development strategy. They couldn't refuse because I gave them all the deciding power. Another thing that works in community engagements is to give the community the deciding power. Let them know how much power they possess and how important it is that they invest it where they see it fit and believe in. That way, the community won't be working for you, but with you. If anything goes wrong, you won't be solely responsible to blame. And if you all succeed, you will be labeled a leader that can be trusted. After my meeting with the members of the community, we started working on bringing together the community and unitedly work for its growth. We were called the workforce because we finished whatever we started without labeled positions. We were all equals. We were back then, and we still are today. I received community recognition for my dedication, and as for my husband's family, they then understood that a fight against me would be a fight against the whole community. I realized at that time where the phrase, "if you can't beat them, join them," came from. As for where I stand today, all my family is by my side. I am their leader, and they are my people. My late husband's brothers and sisters are now my brothers and sisters, as they are part of my congregation in the community church here in Barberton. I stand firm to say that I am a woman of dignity, because despite all the odds, I stood for what I believed until those who fought against me began to believe in me. Chapter 5, as I quote undoubtedly. This chapter has not been made available on the audio version of the book, as it contains only quotes related to the book. Here's an example. We are more of what we do than what we claim to be. Words are merely spoken, well-composed speeches, products of our mental creativity, and sometimes deceptive, but actions are a true reflection of character, by George Robert. Chapter 6, Independence. In many ways, a woman's independence has been linked to being single and employed. If we have a job and earn well, then we are not forced to be submissive to the rules of the society or our domestic duties. That might be true, just not completely true. We are deceiving ourselves if we think that independence has everything to do with finances. That is a separate battle on its own. Financial independence is an independence of its own kind. I understand that we have been subjected to submissiveness due to the little or lack thereof when it comes to financial contributions in households. But to be honest, that's not it. Independence is the freedom of mind that we subject ourselves to. Sometimes it is to subject yourself to what you believe is right, even if it means standing alone and defenseless. Having the truth and a clear conscience is all you need. When our heroes fought for independence, they did not have much on their side, but they believed in justice and fought to the end. As a result, we are free because of their sacrifices. Just imagine if Nelson Mandela accepted bribes from the European government and sold the country. Wouldn't he be rich? Of course he would, but would he be independent? No, he wouldn't be independent, and neither would we. This makes it clear that independence and financial independence are two different things. Our generation is too obsessed with money and careless about what should be valued the most: independence. I am a woman, and I pride myself in serving my country with my services. I am a policewoman, and I believe that I know the real definition of independence in my own terms. As an employee of the South African Police Services, or SAPS, we are always subjected to or bound by the rules issued to us and under oath to serve and protect the law at all cost. Every station has its own issues. As for mine, the greatest issue was the failure to differentiate between being an independent employee and yet be submissive to the law that binds us all, and being slaved and blinded by the need of employment to a point of neglecting the truth. Our station commander was more like a king who swore himself without permission and a dictator in a far west country where the law is made by one and abiding to everyone. Everything was to be approved by him without a check with the law. He made decisions like a man at the comfort of his couch. It is with all due respect that I say this, but it was madness. A man was forgiven for arriving 3 hours late at work, but if a female was late by half an hour, she became a lunch lady for the day as punishment. As an independent woman, I rose to address this matter, first with the commander himself, but he looked at me and saw a threat. I could have backed down, since he threatened to fire me if I kept on digging what doesn't bother me, according to him. But I realized and remembered a quote I was read. It says, "He who does wrong without knowing earns forgiveness, but he who see the wrongdoer knowing the right thing and keep quiet should be punished for negligence." I realized at that point that if I stopped and this went out, I would be as guilty as the one who does the wrong and goes unpunished. As a policewoman, I was hired to protect the law, which includes social injustice, and to act against any rights violation by any individual, regardless of their position. At that point of time, I realized that many employees work under miserable conditions simply because they won't talk. They pretend as if everything is fine, brag about having great jobs, knowing very well that the only great thing about their jobs is the thought of having it. I saw a reason to pursue the deal with this injustice and voiced out to those with enough power to do something about it. What also helped was not pointing fingers at people, but focusing on the laws being violated. This strengthened my case and had me standing tall. After reporting this matter, I was under review for any misconduct, late comings, and my records were overlooked. Did I mention that part of being independent means being mindful of favors received and those given to others? Any wrongdoing of mine would have discredited my complaint. The unjust always fights to prove a point instead of defending what's right. I had my records straight and did everything accordingly, and for that reason I kept on being fearless. I presented my case. I was under a lot of stress due to the processes that the station had to go through, but it was worth it. I understood that I was standing against injustice. So whatever happened, we would all come up with lessons learned. With me standing for this injustice, a lot of things were discovered about my captain, and he was forced to resign. I felt bad for him, but then I realized that if I kept quiet, many would be treated with these injustices, since he had no intention to stop after I confronted him. I was considered a hero for standing up, and many people gained courage to stand up and voice out the sufferings they had to go through because of that man. I had no idea that he had so many skeletons in his closet with so many tormented souls. I was glad when everything came to the open, and I was sure at that point of time that I did the right thing. Sometimes you won't get supporters to stand by you when you face difficulties at work, but only if you tell the truth, you will be free. I looked at many cases where people were subjected to harsh and unhealthy working conditions without notice in the name of keeping their jobs. It's noble of them, but is it worth it? To have more days of work and less of life. Some of those are life-threatening physically, some mentally, and some emotionally. Do you have any idea how many people die daily due to emotional stress? We keep on pining it on witches when we should be looking closer, just deeper. We have lost many good people who were too kind to the devil. They should lock up. I said no more. I will deal with this even if it takes my job away. At least I would be mentally independent. I would not have any guilty feeling in me for doing what is right. My conscience was clear back then, and it is at peace even today. It takes one to start a war and another to end it. But social injustice is fought and won by all those subjected to it. This is my advice to you. We have been through a lot as women, and we should not allow anything to take us back to the black and white days when we had no rights. Now that we do, let's use them for social benefits and to generation of true independent young women. Chapter 7, Setting Records. Inspired by a movie I once watched on TV. I can't remember what it was called, but I clearly remember that it was about a woman who refused to be underestimated in a workforce simply because she was a female. She was in the military, and all she was delegated to do were simple tasks. She felt like she could do more, and that was one of the reasons she joined the military, so that she could break the gap between man and women jobs. She believed that everyone deserved a fair chance, and the 50-50 chance should be implemented everywhere, not only in households or when it comes to salary, but on missions, jobs, and assignments as well. She made me understand the mistake being made by most of us. We want equal opportunities, but we don't want to put in the same effort, the time and dedication for the same job. I took my time a few days ago to understand why males get paid more money than females, even though they will be doing the same job for the same amount of time in the same place. My findings may not apply to everything or every job out there, but they are relevant in many instances. I watched an interview on BBC where one of the CEOs of Uber was asked why male drivers got paid more than female drivers. This is true, but misinterpreted by many. He said, "Many people think that we choose to do that, but the truth is females, they choose to earn less. Females put less driving hours and have a very limited number of neighborhoods they choose to respond to as they deem them to be dangerous. They also put in less hours, while males push extra hours. At average, males spend 17 and plus hours on the road a day responding to calls. Meanwhile, females spend around 5 to 7 hours on the road a day. It's not unfair to them because they understand that we don't count days, but number of calls drivers respond to in a day. Those who are part of this job understand it, but those who hear how much males earn compared to females, without further investigation, tend to conclude that indeed the company has gender-based favorability. I know that in South Africa we hardly have female Uber drivers, but I'm sure you get the idea. Another example I went on to see a similar pattern take shape is the security platform kind of a job. In the security company, we see more active males than females when a dangerous situation is involved. I have spent some time watching the procedures followed by security employees when there is a strike by students. Few women security guards answer to the call to fight the protesters or restore order. It might be due to personal reasons, but the job description includes such when applying for it. Equal payment is expected, although males put their lives on the line for the same job, females do not. To further enlighten my view to you, how many females policemen lose their lives on the job compared to males? It is not stereotype, but choice of response to a certain dangerous call. Jobs that involve danger have an extra responsibility to protect a female employee, and that must be done by a fellow male employee doing the same job, and then someone will expect them to get paid the same salary at the end of the month. Statistics state that in 56 police homicides taking place, only 8 of those were females and 48 were males. That is 85.7% of male officers, compared to 14.3% females. This was stated by the minister at that time, Commander Nathi Mthethwa, in 2011, July 29th, at the National Press Club on post-summit against attacks on and killing of police officers in Pretoria. For this reason and many, as a woman of dignity, I decided to rise to the challenge and earn my 50% contribution to my community and society at large. I persuaded my dream job that I always had as a child, that was not be equal to a man, but to establish myself as a woman and earn my badge. At the age of 23, I recruited few female friends to start a movement that solely focuses on empowering women on building themselves and expose themselves in equal working conditions as males for fairness. I understand that no one should be given credit for believing in entitlement. Those who want respect and equal treatment must earn it. We don't believe in special treatment in working places except privacy. We equip women to work as hard as man if we want to earn equal salary, treatment, and respect. The Bible says that from the days of John the Baptist, the kingdom of heaven suffered violence, and the violence took it by force. Matthew 11, verse 12. Just like the violence that took it by force, so did we take our entitlement of respect and equal rights by standing up and doing something. I believe that no one is born entitled to anything. Circumstances change every day. If those born from rich families need to teach themselves how to handle their wealth and manage it for the going concern, how much should a black child that comes from almost nothing is given but hard work? Dedication and determination earn us all we deserve. Today, I stand firm to say I have earned all that I have, including the initiative that I lead through hard work and determination. I am a chief engineer in a small firm in Mpumalanga, and I'm not afraid to put as many hours as male colleagues and equal effort, if not more. I believe in fairness in everything, including benefits, salary, and delegation of work. I don't believe that fellow sisters who expect favors from their employers deserve any amount of respect or a platform to claim any entitlement of any form, be it respect, equal salary, or treatment. The mentality of being entitled simply because we are women is not building but destroying our society. Many companies employ more males than females for certain jobs because females refuse to put certain amount of hours and effort for the job they applied for. I am beyond the point of exploitation where women should speak up. I'm talking about legal amount of time or extra hours with pay and heavy duty forming part of the contract. It is about time that we stand up and earn what we think we deserve as women. We will get nowhere by keeping on congratulating those moving forward and copy their lifestyle with the money we didn't earn. Just like Will Smith says, too many people spent money they didn't earn on things they don't want to impress people they don't like. Are we progressing or reversing progress? Even those who believe in looking beautiful to impress rich man and end up in a successful marriage should think twice. If he is attracted by your beauty, how many beautiful girls are out there searching and looking for the same man? The next thing you will go around stressing yourself for a man you cannot keep because he goes around looking for beautiful women. Have you forgotten how he got you? Or perhaps you hold the title for being the most beautiful girl in the world. If so, then let him know so that he might stop looking. But if not, so dear black child, establish yourself and learn to be independent of man. The Bible says, respect and honor your mother and father, for that is right, and you will live longer. So a man does not guarantee you a long life of peace, but being independent does. Keep working hard, and we will meet at the wall of fame that honors dedicated Black and African women. George Robert. Chapter 8. Woman with Bigger Vision. Some jobs require us to be ourselves, and some require us to adopt a certain spirit that will influence and impact the business we conduct positively. Everyone in great corporations dress presentably and speak in certain manner for the best of the business. Just like politicians who say something on platform and do the opposite when it's time to act, the same thing applies to great corporations. People look in a certain way to be addressed in a certain way. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a uniform that tells the position of a person in a working place. Their dress code tells it all. It's a strategic method used by many to make their business or working environment representable, to command a certain level of respect and paint a picture of who or what they do. Mine, on the other hand, requires no uniform or certain formal dress code. As long as you don't cause discomfort to others, then you are good to go. I consider it the most important and critical job in the world because we manage lives and give them the best of what we believe to be knowledge. Our strategies are not the same, but I believe that we are all trying our best in one way or the other. Knowingly or unknowingly, we impact lives, businesses, marriages, families, districts, provinces, and countries. I am an educator at a local high school in KwaZulu-Natal. I believe that teachers have the greatest responsibilities after doctors and nurses who save lives. We manage them and indirectly determine great outcomes of the future of our country. We educate presidents who govern us. We educate principals who lead us. We educate nurses and doctors who take care of our health and so forth. The list is endless. But the fact that remains is that most professionals pass through our hands at some point in their lives. We sharpen them, build or destroy them. Our responsibility is to educate them the best way we can, as required by the mandate given to us by those above us. As a teacher, I always believed that the best level of education is not based on what is written on a textbook, but around us. Life is the best teacher, and we are here not to teach, but to guide and facilitate the teaching process to the young ones. That's my own theory, and I stand to be corrected at any time. I believe that our education system tends to limit the capabilities of our children depending on the environment and schools they went to. Our education system does not facilitate and usher our children to their destinations. Rather, it determines where they should end up. This is not limited to the limited resources that we have available for public schools in our country, but the way we were trained to teach our kids in schools. We have missed the process of facilitating the teaching and learning process and turned it into a dictatorship experience that limits the level of education to what was written down by someone else and neglect the teachings that makes us who we are, Africans. South Africa has gone through the most tragic and devastating moments of its existence recently. The xenophobic attacks against four nationals for minor and significant reasons, which resulted in death of innocent souls being wasted. I believe that education had an important role to play because as an educator, I should find solutions within my line of expertise and do something with the resources made available to me. With that said, I strongly believe in the choices I made to better this situation by suggesting modules/subjects that will teach common sense to our kids, to educate them about life, not body parts or nature, because that is already being covered by many others. Modules that will present real-life experiences other than the illusion presented to us through life skills or life orientation. Modules that will educate our children about possible outcomes of uncalculated decisions and where they might lead into, testimonials of people who made the wrong choices and the outcomes of their actions. To have an actual prisoner serving life, teaching students about what led him into where he is today. A corrupt policeman who couldn't serve or protect the law and is now unemployed. A politician who could not get his hands off the public money and ended up exhausting the budget and is now under investigation for corruption. A pastor who could not keep his zip closed and is now facing allegations of possible rape, assault, and public deception charges. In this way, we will teach our children that there are other many responsibilities that come with jobs. As it is now, our young ones just dream of doing jobs that will earn them a lot of money and give them high status in communities instead of serving the community. We shouldn't blame them for what they turn into if we never advise them in detail on how to survive in this world without involving themselves with corruption or other forms of crime. This has resulted in a nation feared of its level of crime and corruption because we were not thought to grow our society but ourselves and look after our own interests instead of public interests. The youth grows without a sense of passion for serving, but with greedy intents instead. They grow to boast of their success instead of sharing with those less fortunate in life. They lack morals and develop love for money. I once saw a Chinese video where children were thought to share food with those who did not have lunch for the day. What was more amazing about it is the fact that those were children between the age of 4 and 7 years, being taught valuable lessons about life. I am sure they will grow to know the value of each other, regardless of class or status. To close the chapter, that was the lesson of the day on that junior primary school's class that day. To learn to share the little you have with those who have nothing at all. I once read a story from the Bible. It is in the book of Matthew 25, verse 14 to 30, where a master left his servants with different amount of coins without telling them exactly what he expects from them, except keeping them for him and invest them. The story goes to say that one was given 5 coins and invested them all to earn another 5 and end up with 10. The second one invested 2 and earned another 2 to end up with 4. And to the last one, he gave 1 coin. Those first 2 believed in sharing and investing the little they had to produce even more, not for themselves, but for the master. Taking care of the less privileged is taking care of the Lord. As he says in the Bible, that when he was in prison, they visited him. When he was hungry, they fed him. And when he had no place to sleep, they provided him with shelter. When they asked, when did they do those things? He answered, whosoever does or shows kindness to those less fortunate has done it for me. There are those who believe that they have too little to share. They are just like the last servant who had 1 coin to invest. He kept it safe instead of investing it. And when the master returned, asked what he had done, he revealed that he kept the coin safe so that the master would find it when he returns. The master was furious with him and ordered for his removal from his presence after taking the one coin he wanted to save. The master then went further to explain that those who had would be added upon what they had, and those who lacked would lose even the little they think they had. Notice what he says about those who have nothing. He did not say that even those who have nothing will remain with nothing, but instead he says they shall lose even the little they think they have. The truth is, everyone has something. No one has nothing. What some of us have might not be possessions, but we definitely have something to share. We know something that others don't, and if they did, their lives would be made easier. The very same way we need something from someone in order to make our lives easier. We need each other as people because we always have something to help each other with, be it money, food, or just words of guidance or wisdom. Nothing is too little to be shared with those who lack. What is nothing to you might be something or everything to somebody. The very same way their everything might be just something to you. George Robert. Chapter 9. The Price of Money and Fame. It is always amazing how we sit down and admire those who worked hard to be where they are. Many young women today talk about famous people like Beyoncé and Bonang Mathiba as if they are gods instead of hard-working and inspirational women. There is nothing wrong with praising them for their dedication, but it is also very important to find your position from where they are instead of just following them as if the whole purpose of your existence is to promote them. It's always key to look at them in admiration and do something about what they inspire you to be. It's not about trying to be them, but to be the next them, if not better. I strongly believe that everyone was born with a talent, described by many as what we are born folding on our palms. Everyone has something to offer to the world. The million-dollar question is what, followed by how do we unleash it to be established. Biblically, it is said that our gifts shall usher us to greatness, meaning that God Almighty acknowledges the fact that He gifted everyone differently. We all have something to offer in this world, but we are guilty of hindering it with the way we tend to imitate those who already succeeded in theirs, without taking into consideration how long it took them to get there, the struggle they went through, the challenges, and the process that got them there. I admire how Bonang Mathiba established herself to be who she is and where she is today. She will always be one of the most inspirational women in the country for all her accomplishments, because that's how we know her. We know the successful her, not the one who went through the process and all the stages that got her where she is. With that well put, we should ask ourselves, how long did it take her to be nationally recognized before wishing to become her? Success that lasts takes time. The very same way instant success lasts short, the process and all the stages involved determine a very important role on how effective is your success will be. It's a question we ask ourselves every day. How did Beyoncé get to be the global top black woman? Or how did Jay-Z get to be the very first black hip-hop billionaire artist in history of existence as we know it? It's inspirational when you think about it, but none of us is thinking about the sacrifices they had to make, the sleepless nights, and the lack of peace they had to go through to be where they are today. I was looking at how many times they made it to the headlines for being members of the Illuminati secret society. The stories we were told about them were not easy even to listen to. Now imagine how it was to deal with them, to live with themselves, after hearing such scary things about themselves. True or not, the bottom line still remains as, would you keep up with such just to be where they are? Perhaps yes, but remember that they had no idea that the world would come up with such stories about them, so they had no idea on how to deal or to respond to them. The very same way you wouldn't have a clue if it happened to you. It's not easy to be the face of a global brand or a famous person. It requires special kind of dedication and many sacrifices just to keep your image up there. It's not easy, and it will never be. I myself admire all famous people a great deal, especially those who have to deal with criticism every now and then. That is one of the reasons I chose to come to Mr. Robert, to also share my insight in the world of rich and famous with the young people who have those dreams. I grew up with nothing, so what I was looking for in life wasn't everything or something but anything. I would pray that God give me anything, just be somebody in life, to have a future, a proper education, and a place to call home. By then, I was homeless after running away from my abusive stepfather. He wasn't kind in so many ways, so in order to survive, I had to run away. So I lost my family, a place to call home, and a hand to feed me. I literally had nothing except the clothes I was wearing. I took into consideration that I am not as beautiful that I would attract rich man to treat me well, or perhaps to trust me enough to give me something to live by. I was illiterate to ask for a job, and I was too young to live on the streets. But I had no choice. I kept on asking around if was there any place that accommodates young orphan girls. My search went on for about 3 months, and at the beginning of the 4th month, on my count, I got a break I was longing for. I came across a young man who took it upon his time to tell me about a school of young Catholic girls living in the school. The Rainbow School for Young Girls, or Rasyog. That's how they pronounced the name when I got there. The school would later change its name to Little Rose School for Girls, or LRSG. The new name sounded more welcoming and easier to remember. The young man took me there, and few months later, I was as good-looking as any privileged young girl you might know about. I grew up to be a young, beautiful girl who attracted a lot of young men. They simply couldn't resist me. I was beautiful, educated, and very smart. I had caught the attention of some Durban club owners and managers of different street corners. I was at the top of the world and even had few ministers as my clients. I became a lousy DJ just to hide my side hustle behind. I've always loved playing with discs, but I never thought I would be so good. I became a DJ and recorded few songs. They really made a name for me. That's when I realized that my gift was being a female DJ. Whatever I was doing was a mistake. I was famous and lived a lavish life that my DJ skills couldn't afford to pay for at the time. That kept me reviving the side hustle, playing with other children's lives and wasting their futures for the sake of the image I sold the people, including my business associates. I had a wake-up call when one day a lady I have never seen before came to me and said, "The enemy got you good. Do you have any idea how much he earns for the job you do for him?" That scared me. At first, I pretended that I did not hear the lady. I chose to walk faster as I exited the mall to the parking lot to get into my recently purchased Mercedes-Benz, while my colleagues depended on me for taxi money every day. I guess that gave me some sort of power. The lady was so persistent. She followed me to the parking lot and repeated her words. At that time, I was scared. I entered the car and drove fast away. As I was driving, I could hear her saying those words over and over again. That night, I could not sleep, and for the first time in about 12 years, I found myself on my knees praying to God. I asked him to help me get rid of the devil who whispered in my ears, and he did so in a way I never dreamed of. The following day, I received an email from the United Kingdom. They requested me to be a DJ for a festival that would last for 3 weeks. They had everything paid out. This included my flight, accommodation, and a weekly pay of approximately $100,000 when exchanged from the British pound. At that point, my eyes opened and my ears started listening. I went out looking for the women at the mall, but I was late by a day. I packed my bags and left that week. When I came back, I got a report that all my clients were arrested. The girls got finally liberated since they went into the dirty business unwillingly. And I finally learned that an offense never gets old. The police were expecting me at the airport, and all my earnings were confiscated and given to the girls for having wasted their lives in the business I started. I went to jail and paid for my crimes with time served, and my earnings of R4 500,000 since the Rand purchased a dollar at R15. Today, I live an honest living. After serving my 6 years in prison, I realized that crime does pay with death or wasted lives. I urge all those with big dreams to search for their dreams instead of climbing ladders built for others. I was lucky that my wage was imprisonment. Others never get a chance to fix their mistakes before they die. I am female DJ, and I live a great, fulfilling life. I drive my own cars, and I feel great that all I own today comes from my efforts, dedication, and hard work. I started bad, I stumbled and fumbled, But instead of allowing that to be the determining factor of how I end up, I grew and became a star. We can still shine no matter where we are. What matters the most is the impact we cause during the illumination process. We don't shine to blind, but to illuminate, bring light in the darkness, while the glitter of the light sustains us. Chapter 10, Woman of Integrity. The female figure was made special from the beginning. She was fearfully and wonderfully made, filled with strength and majesty. The only responsibility given to her was to maintain, sustain, and grow it. Time came when she tested how much of majesty she had over a male, and the authority she had over the prime alpha creature, the male. She proved herself to be capable of making him disobey the only law he knew and follow her instructions. Because of that, she lost all the favor she had over a man and was placed under his authority once again. The power she initially had was never removed, but it was kept hidden within her. Her authority was never taken, but kept from her in her. There are many ways in which we can see that she still got the power, but fewer times we see her using the power in a correct manner. Biblically, we have two women who had the same power but used it differently. One elevated the man, and the other killed the man, dishonoring herself and putting her name into shame, while the other made history and graced her family and a whole generation. The first woman was named Delilah, a beautiful woman who used to sell her body for night riders. She was so beautiful that an anointed man from birth saw a wife in her. Her problem did not start when she met the man whom she was later going to get killed, but when she accepted a man who belonged to a totally different tribe. This challenge still blinds many of our sisters today. They think a woman can change a man. That's a pure lie and deception. No woman have ever changed a man unless the change is to make him evil, wicked, and unstable. Our African herbs serve as a great crystallite for such. With a little effort, those arrangements can be made. Only God can change a man, most of the time at his own request. God does not force a man to change, even if someone else asks on his behalf. See, God gave us one thing that he will never take it away from us. That is the deciding power. The very same reason many believe that there is no God, because he does not force himself to prove his existence to mere man. We tend to blame him for not changing our husbands, forgetting that we did not consult him before getting ourselves involved with the man. The first step before getting into a relationship is not getting to know the man hearing from himself, but from those who live with him, people who know him better we do, those who have seen him at his best and worst. If you ask a man what kind of person he is, he won't tell the most honest truth about him. Instead, he will describe himself as the person you are looking for. It's like advertising. They only tell what you need to hear to trust the service or buy the product. They are not wrong. After all, no one would purchase a badly advertised product. As a Christian myself, the first one I consulted with before saying yes to the man of my dreams was God. I knew that whatever he says is true, and he would never lead me astray. Delilah had a misfortune of being born in a tribe that fought against the most powerful tribe in history of biblical wars. She was fortunate when she met Samson, but her tribe would not let an opportunity of making her an informant pass them by. As a woman who lacked integrity for herself and her newly formed family, she accepted without making means of putting their wicked plan into a stop. That was her first mistake. Many of us still allow many to tell us what to do, even after we form families of our own. The main reason we get married is to form something new, to fully connect to a new identity and form a new line of generation with no ties with our past. That is one area that still destroys many marriages even today. Many women still seek advices from friends and neighbors who have no business in guiding relationships. She dishonored herself when she allowed her tribe to persuade her to get him to reveal his secret, where his might was hidden. Many women still fail to understand that as much as a man is the head of the house, they have the biggest responsibility as the engine. Have you noticed how paramount an engine is in any structure? Anything can operate without the head or the driver, although without a direction, but it would still operate. Inversely, from a head without an engine, it is just a dead structure with a direction, but no movement. An engine causes the machine to work, and the operator facilitates the work. Meanwhile, the operator without a working engine is just a no-go. No work can be covered at all. The first step before getting into a relationship is not getting to know the man hearing from himself, but from those who live with him. People who know him better we do, those who have seen him at his best and worst. If you ask a man what kind of person he is, he won't tell the most honest truth about him. Instead, he will describe himself as the person you are looking for. It's like advertising. They only tell what you need to hear to trust the service or buy the product. They are not wrong. After all, no one would purchase a badly advertised product. As a Christian myself, the first one I consulted with before saying yes to the man of my dreams was God. I knew that whatever he says is true, and he would never lead me astray. Delilah had a misfortune of being born in a tribe that fought against the most powerful tribe in history of biblical wars. She was fortunate when she met Samson, but her tribe would not let an opportunity of making her an informant pass them by. As a woman who lacked integrity for herself and her newly formed family, she accepted without making means of putting their wicked plan into a stop. That was her first mistake. Many of us still allow many to tell us what to do, even after we form families of our own. The main reason we get married is to form something new, to fully connect to a new identity and form a new line of generation with no ties with our past. That is one area that still destroys many marriages even today. Many women still seek advices from friends and neighbors who have no business in guiding relationships. She dishonored herself when she allowed her tribe to persuade her to get him to reveal his secret, where his might was hidden. Many women still fail to understand that as much as a man is the head of the house, they have the biggest responsibility as the engine. Have you noticed how paramount an engine is in any structure? Anything can operate without the head or the driver, although without a direction, but it would still operate. Inversely, from a head without an engine, it is just a dead structure with a direction, but no movement. An engine causes the machine to work, and the operator facilitates the work. Meanwhile, the operator without a working engine is just a no-go. No work can be covered at all. Your chapter, the strength in every weakness. Your life, your chapter, your story. Nothing is as it seems. Everything is as we choose to see it. The 10 women in this book chose to rise under hard, challenging, and harsh circumstances. This is to assure you that you are capable, you are strong, you are more than enough and deserve better, just good. In an age where women are given so much responsibility, adopting the 50-50 and defend themselves from the growing gender-based violence, we invest our efforts in find the strength of a woman and help her to grow. The Strength in Every Weakness version is a final edit of our first print titled Dignity, A Woman's Value is Her Character. With the first print, we did all we could to address what seemed suitable, and the feedback from the supporters resulted in this reprint. Edited, published, and distributed by Continental Books, we show our gratitude by giving the best we can produce. We have finally reached the end of this book. Your journey and story starts now. The strength to conquer your weakness has never been anywhere else but within yourself. Let us hear your story.